Hello, welcome to the June 28th, 2024 Club Cubase livestream. My name is Greg Undo and I'm the host of the livestream today. If you have not attended a livestream before, how it works is you can ask questions in advance by sending an email or simply go to the live chat and type in your question there, and we'll try to get through all the questions chronologically as asked. If we don't see if you don't see kind of an immediate response to your questions, one of the things that what we'll do is basically we go through all the questions chronologically, and I may get behind. So if you don't see an immediate response, if we could avoid asking the same question repeatedly, that would be appreciated. We will also, if you want it at several hours after the live stream ends tonight, we should have a index of all the topics that have been covered in the live streams. And if you wanted to search for topics that have been in, so you can see an index of all the topics covered in today's live stream. If you want to search for topics in previous live streams, you could go to cubaseindex.com. We want to thank Jan from Stockholm for creating that wonderful website. We have two people that serve as moderators, Jazz Dude and Agent K. They're not Steinberg employees. They do it to make it a better community experience. So we want to give special thanks to them. We also want to give Jazz Dude special kudos for his work with the unofficial Cubase Nation Discord, which is a wonderful resource of information for the Steinberg community. And once again, my name is Greg Undo. I work for Yamaha Corporation of America. I am based in the United States and live outside and am presenting from outside Washington, D.C. area in Alexandria, Virginia. So if you are on the live stream, what you could do is introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. So it's always interesting to see where people are from different spots in the country. In 2 hours, we will be starting, it's the last last live stream of the month, and we will be doing a Zoom social meetup. So we'll be starting that in about 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and post the link to that. So we'll be starting just about 2 hours from now. All right, so with that, we will go ahead and get started. All right, so we see Daniel saying Guten Tag, Greg-san, ¿cómo está? Very multicultural. All right, we have Uno Momento checking in from Finland, where it's 30 degrees Celsius. Glenn Dozier from Suffolk, Virginia, a fellow Virginian. It's great to see you on, Glenn. I think it's been a while since we've seen you on live. It's great to have you back. We have Matt Elston. All right, we see the famous Jazz Dude. We have Sable Winters, who is like and thumbs up number 9 from Bay Area. We have Jan from Cubase Index. We have Tim K. Says grateful for the chance to be joining you once again from Zeist in the Netherlands. All right, we have Martin checking in from Germany, where it's 28 degrees Celsius. This seems pretty warm for Germany. All right, we have John Costigan checking in from a cool and rainy Kenosha, Wisconsin. We have Michael Pierce from Grand Chapel Studios. Wishing that everyone is safe, well, and has had a great week. Happy Friday. All right, so we have a question from Gaurav Goswami. Hi, could you please tell how to change the pitch of Groove Agent drum patterns? Okay, so I'm not sure if you want to change the pitch of the drums or the patterns, because a lot of times what happens, let's say we will take this particular drum, so let's take this. So when we want to kind of alter, let's say we'll have this on and Groove Agent kind of has 2 modes. We're going to have kind of an acoustic agent and a beat agent. So when we see kind of like an acoustic drum set here, this is in acoustic agent mode. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll just play this particular pattern. drag pattern over here. Okay, so now let me see if maybe I have my drum map altered here. I'll just do it on a new project here, show this, sorry. All right, so we'll come over here. I'm gonna load a kit with the patterns. Okay. And we'll just go to the pattern. Okay, so I drag this particular pattern over and I'll just adjust my tempo down just a little bit. All right, so a lot of times if we're thinking of doing like a typical transposing the drum sounds or the patterns, what we would often do if you're doing for like a normal MIDI event, you could come over here and go to the MIDI modifiers, and often this may not work well with drums because in drums we could think of each particular instrument as having, you know, the different drum sounds are on different keys. So we'll have hi-hats, toms. So if we have a pattern playing and I do a typical transposition here, so it's playing the same pattern of data, but it's not, once I've transposed it, it's playing different notes. So I'm going to transpose this back down to 0. So now it's going to play back the same notes, but if I wanted to now tune the individual drums, I could select my kick drum, and then we could adjust the tuning for each. So if I want to tune my snare, if I want to tune my hi-hat, we could just kind of come right over here, and for any of the drums that we could just kind of tune. Just like so. Now if it was a beat agent kit, so again, select the drums here, and now you can tune the drums independently. Now it'd be handled slightly different on a beat agent kit. So let's come over here and I'll load up a different kit. Okay, I'll make sure this. So here, if I wanted to tune, again, I would go to the instrument, and then we'll see kind of a pitch pad here, or just on the main. I could now just come over here, take the kick, and tune that. So if I want this snare to be tuned higher. So we're not necessarily changing the MIDI notes, but within Groove Agent, we could adjust the tuning of the different sounds. And then even if I wanted to come here to the kick, let's say we adjust our kick, we could even go into like a pitch envelope. So we could set an envelope amount. So if I want, and we could add a different node. Put in Bezier curves. So all sorts of great stuff that you could do with tuning, but again, since each note is generally playing an individual, is triggering an individual drum sound, the normal transposition won't make sense, but you could tune the drums very easily that way. So let me know if that makes sense. All right, so we have a question. Hi, Greg. What is the fastest way to set the velocities of multiple MIDI notes to one value? Okay, so let's say I'm here. Now I'm put in, these are all different velocities. Okay, so I'm going to select this particular drum sound. We can see that you have all of the velocities. So I'm going to shift and double click. And then I could select all those particular notes. And if we go to velocity, I think, let's say, and I think if I hold down Control or Command, I'm going to type in 100. And then hold down Control or Command and then hit Enter. But now all of the velocities are set to the same amount. So if I was doing this in a MIDI key editor, and we open it up, and we have varying velocities here for all of my notes in the key editor. So do a Control A, select all of the notes, go to the velocity value here. So okay, I want it to be 96. Hold down Control or Command, then hit the Enter key, and now you could have a fixed velocity for all of the pitches, just like that. So let me know if that's quick enough for you. You could also do it in a logical editor, but that's probably going to be faster. Thanks for your question. It's from Cyan B. All right, wonderful to see Ace Amadeus on, and we see Jan from Cubase Index. Always a pleasure. All right, so we have Mike from New York says, just wondering if there's a command to reset all EQ settings, including low pass and high pass filters. All right, let's take a look. I'm not sure if the low pass, high pass filters are sometimes separate from the EQ, even though they're kind of bundled in. So let's say if I have different EQ values here, and we'll activate, let's say our filters, like so. So I think if we do reset EQ settings, it may just do the parametric EQ. I just kind of right clicked. Yeah, so it doesn't include that. And let me just see if there's a key command. Yeah, so I don't think that there's key commands for it, so you could undo kind of all of the EQ changes by right-clicking and then coming over here to reset, but that doesn't necessarily, and while it's kind of represented here, it's kind of a separate EQ that you could just have to turn that on or off. And let's see if there's a keyboard shortcut for that. Yeah, so I don't think that there's keyboard shortcuts to do that manually, so it's going to be kind of a two-step process. If we have this, that we could turn this off right, if you wanted to. And let's just see if we could maybe... Okay, let's see if we could do it like with maybe a quick control set for the low pass. So I'm going to come here to my MIDI remote. So if I just come here, so there's my low cut on, right click, and then we'll do my high cut on as buttons. We'll apply the mapping. And so if I do that, and then you could just simply use functions from the remote control to get into it and bypass those. So it's going to be, I think, kind of a two-step process. Mike. All right, wonderful to see Brian Sawyer from Beulahville, North Carolina. Thanks for joining us. And we see Stefan from Sweden. We have Gareth joining from Spain. Wonderful to see you on. We have Pertti Komenen also checking in from Finland. We have Razel from Denmark. Thanks for joining us. All right, so we see Mark Rabin and Stella, his dog, are mobile. I guess they're just, she rolled in dead fish at the river. So that's Mark's dog. So everyone give a big woof to Stella. All right, so we see from Ace Amadeus, hi Greg, project where I have snare 1 wave is scattered in a track. What is the best way to replace that snare wave with a new snare 2 wave file so the new sound syncs and replaces the old one? Okay. So if you have like one sample that's being kind of repeated multiple times, I'll just show you an example. I'll show it with a kick, but same principle applies. So let's say I just have an audio file of a snare. So in this case, I have just an audio file of a kick. So let's say I want to replace, I have this kick drum copied multiple times in my project, and I wanted to replace every instance of that kick with a new kick sound. So I could just come over here and I'll just go hunting for sounds. And we'll say kick drums. So what I could do is drag this over, and I'm going to hold down the shift key. Drag it on top, and it'll ask me, do you want to modify all events that refer to that same material? So I'll say all. So now I could just drag in different samples and replace every time that that one sample is used. If it's used multiple times within a project, drag it over top, hold down the shift key, and now we could just replace that particular, every instance that that audio file is in the project, we could just replace it. Just like this. So hold down shift and drag it over top. And all of the audio files that refer to that audio file can be replaced. So let me know if that's kind of what you want to do, Ace. All right, so we see from, says, thanks for explaining about tuning of the drums in the pattern, but if my song is in D major and the drum kit pattern is in C major, is there any way to change it to D because transposing doesn't help? So, you know, generally drum patterns, drum kits aren't necessarily in a particular key, you know, so if you, you know, but I've had issues sometimes. I remember like a jazz drummer had his kick drum tuned to E flat. That was kind of the resonant pitch. So if you need, you know, and he was playing in a rock session that was in the key of E. So that every time he had his kick, it was kind of clashing with the frequencies of the bass. So at that point, I just, you know, you could just raise it up manually until it doesn't fit. But generally, you don't think of drum sounds as being, oh, my song's in the key of D. I need to make sure that the drums are in D because most of the time they're not so tonally based. You know, if you do run into issues, then you could just take each drum, and it's not the whole drum kit isn't going to be necessarily, you know, you don't load up a drum kit thinking of the key, but if it does clash, you could change the pitch on the drum sound on the instrument so that it doesn't clash. All right, so we see from Amato Solo, hello, how do I set the delay on a channel when I want to adjust for phase cancellation? Thanks. So if we have two tracks, you'll see like this little delay. So, you know, most of the time, you know, as you do any effect processing, it's going to automatically be placed. You know, everything will be kind of, you know, delay compensated, and you won't have phasing issues when dealing with tracks. But if you come right over here in the top inspector area, so as we open this up, you'll see a track delay here. So if you need it to adjust, you know, so let's say if we duplicate this track here, so you know, this will actually play this particular track back early. If you are kind of needing to kind of adjust the phase, let's say if we're looking at our two tracks here, I'll make these larger so we can see kind of the phase, and we find that these particular tracks are out of phase. What you could do is come over here, we could adjust, I'm going to set this to seconds, and then if you go to the start time on a particular track, then you could adjust, you know, in seconds or samples even. So this way I could adjust at the sample level, and we could manually, where we visually see the tracks shifting. So if it's looking something like this and you're like, okay, I know that, you know, this is the top of the peak and this microphone is catching it a little at a time. What I could do now is just come over here and adjust the start time, and we could do this by right clicking, We could do it by bars and beats. Probably if you're like manipulating for phase, set it to samples, and then you could just move it one sample at a time until the different tracks are lined up. So let me know if that makes sense for you. Okay, so we see Nick on. Thanks for joining us. Says, all right, so we have another question from Ace. Hi, Greg. To move Cubase instruments to external drive, do I need to re-download them, or how do I copy them from the C to external SSD and delete them from C drive properly? So all you need to do, there's going to be a utility. So you would keep the instruments on a C drive, but all the content and samples, when we come over here, we would go to what we call the Steinberg library manager. So we could see like all the different groove agent kits, the Hallian instruments. We would just click on the ones that you want to move from your C to your D drive. So select the particular ones. You could select all of them, go to details, and then you could say, okay, I want to move. And as you do this, select the new location, and then all of the samples will be migrated from your C drive to your external drive. Okay, so we see Gary just says, when is Teddy Riley coming on? So he should be joining us in about an hour and a half on the Zoom social meetup. I tried to confirm with him today. I haven't heard from him today, but he's often working late, so hopefully he'll be able to join us. But I didn't get kind of a confirmation, which I always like to get. But we're expecting him on his Zoom social meetup, which I will post the link. And we should be doing that in about an hour and a half. So hopefully Teddy will make it. All right, so we have a question from inactive user. Hi, Greg. Is there a way to pan only part of an audio clip to the left side, or do I have to create a separate track to pan it? So all you have to do, you could just do basic automation. So let's say I have this synth track here. Let me make sure I don't have it too loud. All right, so what I could do is, let's say I want to do some automation. So what I could do now is just come over here, we'll write. And then I'm gonna move. There. So now I'm gonna go to the right, go to the left, right, left, center. So now when we play this back, and then if you wanted to edit the automation, you could just come right over here and say, okay, we're gonna go pan left to right. I will just close this so you can see it a little easier. So if you want it to just come over here, so if you just select pan in your automation, then you could just draw it in. So you don't have to put on 2 tracks. You could just say, okay, I need my pan automation here, and then I want it in the center. I want it to be all the way down. So whatever you want to do for your automation, and if you wanted to just casually go between different values, you could just have that do a pan over time. Or again, if you just say, okay, I want that to be panned here, and I want this to be panned all the way to the bottom, you could just kind of manually draw in your pan as well, just like that. So now we could have so you don't need to do it on 1 track, just try automating the panning. All right, so we have from Scape21. Hi, Greg. I know it's been asked before, but what Yamaha mixer do you use to do your live stream, and how do you set up the routings? I'm using the AG08, which is kind of a live streaming mixer. So I have my microphone going in. I have my analog outputs from my audio interface, the UR24C, going in, and then when I go to OBS for my audio, I just use the Yamaha AG08 in the streaming section, and then that way if I have to cough, I have a mute button that I could use. It has onboard compression, EQ, I could get some pitch shifting, a bit of reverb, different effects. I could trigger different sounds. There's like 6 pads, so if I want to trigger like annoying sounds like that, I could do it, and you could load up your own samples. But that's the one that I use. So all right, so inactive user just asks, how can I export my song in WAV at the highest quality? All right. So when we're exporting, all you have to do is just kind of come over here. So realize that if you've recorded at 24-bit, which is pretty typical, or if you recorded at 32-bit floating point, if you want to do the highest quality export, we come over here to export to audio mix down, and we would, I've tried to use the same sample rate, but we would also want to, instead of using like 24-bit, probably 32-bit floating point, or if you've been mixing in 64-bit floating point, depending on if you have that activated, you could choose that. That would be the highest quality. So most programs can read 32-bit floating point files. There's a lot of programs that can't read 64-bit floating point files, but that would give you kind of the highest resolution. So I think if you did your project in 48K and then you said, oh, I want to export it at 192, I don't think you really gain anything. But since the audio is being processed at 32-bit floating point, I think it makes sense to actually do your export audio mix down at 32-bit floating point resolution. All right. Okay, so PK asks, is there a way to pitch up and down all music tracks, vocals, guitars, pianos, etc., from one to the other? I mean, excluding drums, percussion, and loops. Okay. All right, so say I have like a band project with drums, and I want to pitch. So there is something called a transpose track. And one setting to kind of be aware of. So we want to make sure that all of the tracks are in musical mode. I'm going to add one function here, and we'll just say follow global transpose. I'm just going to move this up so that we could see it. Okay, so there is a setting called global transpose. So I'm going to select all of my drums that I don't want to transpose, and I'm going to set these to independent. So now we're going to enable musical mode on all of the different sources. So make sure that we're in musical mode. Let's add a transpose track. So we're going to right click, and we'll see a transpose track. And then really all we have to do is say, okay, as we're playing, I want it to transpose, let's say right here, up a whole tone, so 2 semitones, and I want it to transpose down right there, and let's say now I want this to be down a whole tone. So we'll say -2 and then back to 0. So as we listen to this, so we're at kind of our home key here. So when we do this transposition, and we'll hear it kind of change here. Our drums aren't going to transpose because we set them to not be following the global transposition. So right now it's going to transpose. And then it's going to go back down to, and then when it gets to this part, it's going to go down a whole tone. But when you listen to the drums, they're not changing pitch. Then when we get to here in the song, it's going to go back to the original key. So to have particular tracks not follow the transposition, like your drums, and if you don't see the parameter, right click, and you may have to just kind of move it up depending on what other functions that you have visible. But when you have something, and just set the tracks that you don't want to follow transposition, set those to independent, and then those won't be transposed when you use a transposed track. You could also, another approach is to very easily come over here and select the particular tracks, and then you have a transpose function here. So I don't have the drum tracks selected. So you could just kind of audition different transposition functions without adding a transpose track. Just select the elements, the events that you want transposed, and the ones you don't select those. All right, so we see Daniel has gotten his volume issue with his interface and his speaker sorted out, so that's great. All right, so we see Val joining us from sunny and hot Vienna. Thanks for joining us. All right, so we see from Tony Trunzo, hi Greg, is there a way to remove wind noise from an audio track using Cubase? So if you had something that was like wind noise, let me just import an audio file here. I think I may have something that might work. But using kind of the SpectralLayers 1, we just look for the one audio file, sorry. But if you, you know, so what we could do is, so, you know, when you have Cubase, there is SpectralLayers, and you get SpectralLayers 1 with it. So we could come over here and just say, okay, let's go to our extension here, and we're gonna, now when we double click on the sample editor, this will launch it into SpectralLayers. And what this will allow you to do is you could select different frequency ranges. So let's say, okay, I want to come here and this is the noise. Then you could just choose to delete different frequency ranges. So this will allow you to, instead of thinking of it like a traditional audio editor where we edit all of the particular frequencies, what we could do, you know, when we look at this, we can see our traditional waveform here, but this is almost like kind of turning the waveform on its side. And then we could see kind of the low frequencies here, the high frequencies. And then what you're going to be able to do is to select, like, just, you know, you can say, okay, this is my wind noise. And then you could just remove those particular frequencies or those particular parts. And if you have just like wind noise with a vocal recording, something like that, what you could do is come over here, and there is, if you go, you may see an unmix in the version that comes with it, and then you could unmix the vocals. So in here it's going to be called unmix song, but you could then choose to unmix the vocals, and that way the dialogue can be separated from the background noise as well. So check out this SpectralLayers 1, because that will allow you to do spectral editing, where you could take out individual frequencies and isolate different parts within a particular audio file. All right, so inactive user says, how can I do more than just panning automation on one track, like panning and volume changes at the same time? Okay, so let's say we'll put this, okay, so let's say I want to take my bass part, and I'll just make kind of a small section here that will repeat. Okay, so when I click on write automation, and I'll just open up the channel settings, so I'm going to write volume changes. So now everything that I did was recorded. So let's say we have our volume recorded here. So let's say, now I want to adjust my panning. I want to adjust my EQ. So now everything that I adjust here, my EQ, my panning, my volume, can all, any parameter that's on your particular plugin or on your track, if I have plugin parameters as well. So you can automate multiple parameters. I'm adjusting the parameters on my so any of those things can be automatically those changes will just automatically play back. So you could automate, you know, thousands of parameters on a particular track. And then they're all available to edit. So if we just go to your automation parameter, we can say show used automation, and every single parameter that we automate it will be on a separate track, just like so. So no problem doing that. All right, so we just have a question from Roland Stuff. Hi Greg, is there a quick way to separate out instruments from a mix in SpectralLayers 11 and place each voice directly into its own track in the project window? Yeah, so I think I have one. It's already kind of pre-done, so we don't have to wait for it. Okay, so let's say in this particular project, I've done the unmixing. So now when I double click, so if I wanted to. So now what I could do is just simply, you know, we could just drag. Here, I'll just dock this back here. But all you have to do is you could actually just, let's see, I think, yeah, if I just want to take like the vocal layer and drag that out into the project, you know, we could, you know, so each one of these we could drag out, and that would automatically, you know, at that point we could just come over here and say, okay, now I want the bass, the vocals. So any of the different elements we could drag out. So now as we listen to it, so at that point, you just kind of drag the layer out into the project window, and then that will be the isolated part right there. All right, so we see that Gareth has to pop out and hopefully be back before the Zoom. And he wants people to quantize the like. Okay, so we have a question. Hi Greg, how and with what plugin can I set up a dual delay with 3/16 and 5/16? Okay. Just okay, so let's say if we want to come over here, let's say we have,
and our first kiss, there was no regret.
all right, so usually when you do delays, they're going to be set in values of like by 16th notes, but if you want to do like 3/16 and 5/16, I'll come over here. Let's go to my inserts, and let's just put, I'll take the reverb off. So we'll come.
It was 7th grade in the school parking.
All right, so I'm going to open up we'll go to our delays, and then we'll have, so usually we'll go to a stereo delay. So let's say my value, I want to set it to a 16th note. So we could do this and we can see sync. So we can see that a 16th note is going to be 175 milliseconds. So if I wanted this to be 3/16ths, we would do 3 times 175. So I would set this to 525. And then when we want to do our left, I'll say, okay, let's go to sync here and set it to, so we say, so at this particular tempo, and then I'll just do it with something that has a steady tempo, because this will, we could have it automatically sync, but we say, okay, we have, so we do our value 1/16, or we could say, okay, 525. So you would just kind of set up the, the mathematical values. So let's just make sure. All right, so I'm going to set this to 16th. Make sure I have my math right here. Then I'll just do it on a project with the steady tempo. Hang on, this one has different tempos like every beat. Just to make it easier for demonstration purposes. Okay, and I'll revert this. All right, and let me see if I can remember from my audio engineering days. Let's find our do. All right, so let's just set this up. Okay, so let's add. So I'm not sure if you're doing, because usually delays will be done in like 16th notes, like if you wanted that particular value. So let me see. And so I'm not sure if you want it to be, when you say like 3/16th notes. So what you could do if you wanted that is, I'll just do maybe like, but is just to, so I'm not sure if you want the feedback set higher. So let's say if we want like 3/16th notes. We just find like a vocal or something, it might make more sense. where you hear the delay a little more clearly.
I feel the
Okay, so let's say
I feel the weight. I feel the weight.
all right, make sure I have this on the right track. Okay, so now
I feel the weight.
so you could have like a longer feedback on the right.
I feel the weight.
So you could have it be 16th notes, but change the feedback. So this could give you 3 16th notes on the delay. So if we wanted to come over here, let's just set this mix to minimum so we can hear the left delay.
I feel the weight.
So that way we could just,
I feel the weight.
so if I wanted more on this, I can set my mix and then just increase the feedback.
I feel the weight.
So if you want 5 16th notes, you could just come over here and kind of specify the feedback, you know, and you could have something that's more like, you know, something just on like an impulse on beat 1 or something like that and count the number, but you could adjust the feedback there for, so you have 5 16th notes for a delay and 3 16th notes for a delay there. So let me know if that's helpful for you. All right, so we have Septimus X sending greetings from Oklahoma City. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so we have a question. What would you suggest is the best workflow for delay throws on specific word or phrase in a vocal? Copy that phrase to an entire track with the delay on it. So what I would do is just do the offline processing. So we'll show you here. So if you don't want to do like automation on it, I could just come over. Let's listen to our vocal file.
What did you say? For 1,000 years and a day.
So let's say I want to take that. So I'm going to select the vocal here, and let's say on I want the word like day.
Years and a day.
So I'm going to just say I want to take that. I'm going to select that particular range, and if you have to get in a little tighter, we could just say, okay, I want to take that particular phrase. I'm going to select a range I want to delay throw in. Let's go to your audio menu, to process it, or to plugins, and I'll just come over here. Let's say we want to do like a mono delay. I want to make it a dotted quarter note. So now that's already kind of processed it. So now we can come here.
For 1,000 years and a day.
Then let's say, okay, I want it to be a faster delay. I can say, okay, instead of a dotted quarter, I want it to be maybe a dotted eighth delay, and then that's automatically going to change and process that file.
You were the party that
So kind of select the area that you want the delay throw in. So if you say, okay, I want this to do a delay throw to lasting right there. Again, just come over here. Let's add, I can say, let's just do dotted 16th note delay there. So I'll just add our delay plugin. We'll do, let's say, a ping pong delay of eighth notes. So now we listen to this.
Now I'm uninvited. I'm on the outside looking in.
So you could just kind of select the range and then put delays in. And then the beauty of this is, like, even after you save the project, you can come back, change the settings, or just delete the processes even after saving the project. Okay, so we have Val says, question, can I use, and sorry, my chat field just jumped. Can I use a 24-bit interface with 32-bit in Cubase? So yeah, you can, most audio interfaces are going to be 24-bit converters. So you can capture 24-bit, and then all the internal processing when you add effects and automation, that's all going to be done at 32-bit floating point. So yes, you can. Okay, so Amadeus asks, hi Greg, a while back I asked you how to save instrument created in Halion 7 to external drive. Can't get it to work, my bad. Could you please go over, have C12 and 13 Pro, thanks. All right. Okay, so I'm going to take this sample here, and I'll just do it like from the sampler track. So we'll select our sampler track here. I'm going to now migrate this to Halion. Halion will load. And now once we see over here on the right hand side, we could export So you could just come right over here, export samples, and then you could choose your folder right there. So again, just kind of right click here. And then you could, save the program. You could also just export as a VST3 preset. So, and at this point, we could choose our drive location here. And then at that point, you could put in your different character and different metadata. And then once that folder there, so just right click, you could say export program as a VST3 preset. So, all right, I'm going to post the Zoom link again. We'll be going in about an hour. All right, so Chiluminate asks, where can I find a vocoder plugin? Please demo a setup of vocoder with example MIDI note, chord as a carrier, and audio files of words, paragraphs, a modifier. Okay, so when we come over here, so the vocoder has come in Cubase 13. So let's come over here, and I will load up, let's say, kind of a synth track. right, let me just. Okay, so on this particular track, so we're going to have a retro log. So it's come here. I haven't used a vocoder in a while, but let's come over. So we could just, I think it's going to be under pitch shift. You'll see the vocoder plugin. Okay, and then we want to set this to external. And then basically we're going to sidechain in. So here we're going to choose our retrolog 02. So now as we play, so make sure I got this routed right here. I'll turn on the sidechain. Okay, so now let's say we just set it to fixed, we can just have it. All right, and now what we need to do is to get the MIDI input. So let's come over here. And if we want, I'll just add a MIDI track. We're going to set its MIDI input from the plugin. It's going to be so it should be once we add the particular all right, let me just deactivate that real quick. I think we need to add a MIDI track and set the MIDI input. And you should see the MIDI input coming from the retro log. Let me see if I just do it on a smaller project from scratch here. Okay. So now let's throw the vocoder in. I think we should see it as the MIDI input on the track. Let me just say. Sorry, sorry for my brain cramp here. But let me just put on external MIDI. Maybe then it will show up. Yeah, so I know you basically will set this up. I know Dom had just posted a video on it today, but you would set this up. Let me see if I need to, if I'm doing like an instrument track here. I think it should usually show up here. Let me see if I have to sidechain it from. But I think it's usually, sorry, I'm just having a brain cramp on it, but I can show it on Tuesday's live stream. I could have it dialed in for then. Sorry about that. All right, so Daniel just says, hi Greg, everything works fine, so it's not very important. My DSP mix effects URC doesn't do anything. I tried to change volume on DAW and music, and there's no change. Could I have plugged in something wrong? All right, so I don't think so. So if I don't have a microphone connected into mine, but if we come over here to our URC, so we could switch between the two modes where we can see, okay, I want to be, when we see this, make sure that if you're making adjustments, so this will be for your DAW, and here you could, as you have an input source, you could hear the changes. And then you could have the reverb as you're recording. So you could set that there, and when you're doing live streams, here you could have different effects, like if you needed a multi-band compressor for the live stream, so you could have kind of different DSP settings for different scenarios. All right, great to see Sway TV in. All right, great to see Gerald Elion. Okay, so we see Daniel just says, when I select something in Media Bay, it shows it's auto playing, but I don't hear anything. Once I drag it into the project window, it has sound. Can I fix this? So probably what you need to do is when you're going into your audio system, so we'll go to your audio connections here. Make sure you have the control room enabled. You'll probably have outputs defined as stereo, but let's say if I come over here to my control room, I turn this off, and I have my outputs defined. So now, so you could try to go to your audio connections here, and try utilizing the control room, and make sure that your control room is turned on, because sometimes the preview will automatically just get routed through the control room. So we'll come over here. So try to just make sure you're running and using the control room for that. All right, so we have PETA checking in from Austin. All right, so we see Ace Amadeus says, Greg, are your funky bass beats also are available in the library? I think most of the stuff that I kind of use in demos is coming from the included library. All right, so we see Klaus asks, it says Klaus from Hanover. So I got to go to Hanover once. If I set a marker, I can use the numbers 1 through 9. Is there a possibility to use more numbers, and how? And can I shift the number in 2? So number 1 and 2 will always be kind of based on the left and right locator, so that's going to be fixed. If we have a number of markers that we want to access beyond 9, what you could do is, so let me just add a marker track. Okay, so you're going to have a key command, and I could just trigger this where the function will be it'll be something like to marker X. Okay, so if you look in the key commands or come over here, I think if we go to markers, let's say let's say marker X. I think if you search for go to, and it might be under transport, go to marker X. So you'll see this under transport to marker X. Okay, so I'm going to assign that to a particular button. Okay, so now let's say I want to go to marker 13. I could hit the button, and you see right here to marker, I type in 13, and we could just, so when we do that, you can say, okay, let's go to 11 or whatever. So you could just now come right over here. It'll prompt you for the marker, and you could type the marker in and navigate just like that. So try using the to marker X. All right, so you see from Rolling Stuff, thanks for showing me how to drag and drop the layers from SpectralLayers. All right, so we see, hello Greg, can we customize or swap the list of plugins in the vocal chain plugin with our favorites? So, the vocal chain plugin is going to be fixed, so it's not really intended to be, a mechanism for, loading in other plugins. If you wanted to do that, you could simply save it as an effects chain preset, but when we're working with the vocal chain, and we'll just show it here, it's not intended to work with, other processes. So it's the processes that are included, and you could change the order of the processes, but you can't necessarily substitute other processes in and have it here. But you could do that with an effects chain preset if you wanted to. All right, so let's say, okay, so we see from, it says with delay time 3/16 dotted eighths. So, if you want to set your delay value to dotted eighths, all you have to do, and we'll just pop over to our stereo delay. All right, so let's go to our stereo delay. So now when we open up the values, all you have to do is say, where you see the D here, so that would be your dotted eighth. So let's say 5/16 would be, that'd be like 1 1/4. So that would be your 3/16. So it might be, so I'm not sure if you do like a dotted for dotted, maybe a dotted quarter. That's going to be 6/16. So you may have to kind of do it there, but you do have dotted and triplet values for each of the rhythmic values right there. All right, so we see from question from Daniel, do you think someone who's still wet behind the ears should be getting into the mastering process? I don't know mixing yet. Going to start it after I finish my current course. So I would say that if you're not comfortable with mixing, that, you know, mastering could be something. I think that learning mastering before mixing could be the wrong order, the wrong approach to that. So you might be better just, you know, concentrating on mixing. You'll see probably some of the most advanced audio engineers, you'll find them as mastering engineers as well. So, you know, so there's, you know, so I think that as you work with that, you know, the mastering engineers will be kind of the more mystical aspects of the audio industry, and, you know, where the guys just do like the most simple thing and makes the most profound change in the mix. All right, so we see FlyV has made it. All right. All right, my chat field just jumped. All right, reading through comments. All right, so you see Jay from Secret Studios is it possible to copy over the articulation libraries between Cubase and Nuendo so that there isn't a need to import into Nuendo if they're already saved into Cubase. All right, so let's take a quick look. Let's make an expression map here quickly. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Okay, so let's say I'll save it to my desktop. Let's open up Nuendo. Let's get to our expression map setup. Let's load from desktop. Okay, here's our Secret Studios expression map. Then, so if they're kind of saved in a location, you could just simply open them up, and then, you know, so you could save them into kind of a neutral location, and then just load and open up the expression maps between the two programs. So try saving the expression maps, and then you could save them to the folder, and then just simply open up those expression maps. Or if you're using the track presets with those expression maps, so let's say if I close that expression map, let's go back to Cubase, and I have my instrument track. I will come to my instrument track here. We will make an event. Let's load. Go to our expression maps. We'll go to our secret studios. And now okay, so I'm going to right click, save track preset. All right, let's jump over to Nuendo. And we'll see if we can just load a track using the track preset. I may have to refresh Media Bay. Okay, here's our secret expression. I double click, and now when we go into the MIDI editor, we can see that the expression map is automatically recalled. So let me know if that makes sense. So if you save like track presets, it's automatically there, or you could just open up the track presets from this, or the expression maps from the same preset. Okay, Michael Teams asks, Cubase, howdy Greg, how to get Cubase to sync to an Alesis SR16 drum machine and control the Alesis. The Alesis has his drum sounds and he wants them on the project. So if you have the patterns that are programmed in the SR16, what you need to do is just simply go to your transport menu, and we will go to the project synchronization setup. And at this point, sorry, I think I'm still in Nuendo. Let me just do it in Cubase. So we go to the project synchronization setup. So if they have programmed patterns and you want those patterns to be in sync, what you need to do is to come over here and you say you want to go to destinations and you want MIDI clock. So you want where the SR16 is connected. So the SR16 I don't think has USB. It's probably still just a 5-pin DIN, because I think it was 1989 when it came out. But at this point you could, wherever the MIDI is connected here, and as we do the MIDI clock, what it's going to do is you need to tell the SR16 to be an external sync. So at that point, when you hit play in Cubase, the drum machine will play. Now, if it's you just want to use those particular sounds of the SR16, all you would need to do is to make a MIDI track. And once you have a MIDI track created, you want to set the channel to match the channel on the SR16. It may default to 10. And then whatever MIDI output port that the device is connected to, and then your MIDI data could go out to the SR16 and sound. But if you just want to use the sounds, just connect it as a MIDI device. And then if we want to synchronize with the patterns, that's when we need to go to your project synchronization setup and tell it to, on a MIDI clock, that you want to send MIDI clock out of the MIDI port where it's connected to. So you're going to take the MIDI out from the computer, your computer's MIDI interface, to the input of the SR16, and then tell the SR16 to go into external clock. So if you just want to use the sounds, just connect it as a MIDI device. Otherwise, if you need to synchronize their beats that they programmed and patterns, use MIDI clock. All right, I'll paste the Zoom meetup. One more time. We'll be starting about a half hour, so hopefully Teddy will be joining us. I haven't heard back from today, but send him some reminders. It'll be Teddy Riley, so hopefully he'll be able to make it. All right. All right, so you see Daniel's got his audio interface working, so that's good. All right, so you see from Ace Amadeus, hi Greg, hard drive is getting full, how to move Cubase sounds to external SSD, need to re-download, or how to copy them from C to external, and how to delete them from the Win10. So again, you just go to the Steinberg library manager. So you'd see all of your Cubase sounds here. So just select move for all of the sounds. These are like all the loops. You could do it for your Groove Agent, for your Hallian sounds, other instruments, Pad Shop, Retrolog. So you can have all these presets. Just click on move, and then at that point, click on a move button and tell it to go to your other drive, and that will move all the contents from your C drive to your external drive. All right, wonderful to see Tim Weinheimer on. Just says, thanks for answering my drum editor question. You're welcome. Great to see Millard Brown on. Thanks for joining us from outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. All right, so Daniel says Media Bay plays now. Thanks. All right, that's great. All right, David M. Great to see you on from Liverpool. Says still working but listening. All right, so Ace Amadeus asks, hi Greg, does Steinberg check third-party VSTs? Is there an approval process? So, we released a software development kit. We're not necessarily going to be the police and tell people that their plugin isn't working. If the plugin is deemed to be problematic, it will be placed into a block list, often when you start, indicating that the program is finding it it's kind of runs an integrity check on the plugin as it's being booted up, and at that point, if it's deemed unstable, it'll be placed into the block list. But we don't proactively check the 200,000 VST plugins to see if they're all good. So. All right, Robert Lofgren asks, Greg, is it possible to automatically tempo map to the bar and not to the beat? So when we do the tempo detection of a particular track, it's going to be set to the beat to be more accurate. If you want it to do to the bar, and what you could do is just simply, and if you wanted to manually do it, we could place it into warp grid mode, and then this would allow you to kind of move the bars manually to do this. So you could do it kind of manually, but the automatic tempo detection, just to be more accurate, is going to be based on the beat of the music and not the bar, because it could be it doesn't necessarily determine if you're in 3/4, 2/4, 5/4, 4/4 as well. All right, Daniel asks, is there anything more to mixing than gain, staging, balancing, panning, EQ, compression, reverb, delay, or is that it? Can I make an audio jungle, maybe jingle, worthy mixes, mastering with default Cubase stuff? So yeah, you could definitely do, everything you need for a production is going to be included in Cubase, but mixing is kind of like an art form. It's almost like saying, can I paint the Mona Lisa if I have the right colors? There's an art to it, and often great mixing, like we'll see people that will all right, so it looks like Teddy Riley is going to be on. I just got a confirmation from Teddy. So everyone in the Zoom meetup, if you want to meet just the R&B legend, the creator of New Jack Swing, worked with Michael Jackson records. So Teddy will be joining us. I'm thrilled to get the confirmation. All right, my cat Steven has popped in. He wants something from me. All right. But, so again, mixing is going to be, don't think of it just gain staging. It's like, you're making a musical statement. So sometimes I remember being in a room with Bob Clearmountain once, and, part of his mix was, he just took the drums down before a build up to make the chorus sound better. So at that point, it was like the drums were kind of throughout the whole song. He made a musical decision in his mix to give more emphasis to the project. So, you could do stuff like that. So, but, and you'll always learn. And many times, and we've had great mixing. And if you want to ask Teddy Riley, this is a great question. You could ask Teddy. And I remember when we had Michael Wagner on the live stream, and he sold over 100 million records. And I asked him, like, how do you know when your mix is done? And he's like, I was like, do you ever want to go back and redo a mix? He's like, that's the best mix for that day, and that's all it's ever going to be, so no regrets. But there is an artistry involved in the process of mixing too. So you see Michael Team says, yeah, he's killing me with nothing lining up in a grid, plus his changing time signatures every 16 bars. Yeah, so you can just simply, just simply, make sure that you know what the tempo is of the device. You can match up the time signatures that you want, and then the tempos will automatically be synced from the SR16. All right, so we see Ace Amadeus ask, Greg, does Steinberg have any instruments that emulate Emax 2 or Oberheim? So I think, one of the great Oberheim instruments that you could get, obviously an Emax 2 is a sampler, so you could use Hallian for that. And you could have very similar filters. A lot of the, functionality you get with an Emax. But if you want it like an Oberheim, if we come over here, one of the add-on instruments that you get is called Rasta, I think. So check this out. This will be kind of very Oberheim-esque. So if you want to come over here, just say, okay, let's take this. So check out Rasta if you're kind of looking for kind of Oberheim-inspired sounds. I think that will get you there pretty quickly. All right. Okay, so FlyV asks, I'm just wondering which SpectralLayers is included with Cubase Pro 13. Is it included? So you have SpectralLayers 1. I think it's version 10. That's what is included with Cubase 13. Wonderful to see Graham Witcher on. It says Miss Tuesday's live stream is with Euros football. So we hope that your move is going okay for you. We hope the football game was good. All right, sorry, just trying to find my spot. All right, so we see from Daniel says, I meant just about the tools. Are there more than those 7? You know, so there's modulation effects, you know, and, you know, like, you know, panning, but there's, you know, so many different elements of those. But, you know, those may be like the primary themes, you know, that you would use in mixing, but, and then combining those different themes together. Yeah, and learning those tools first is always a great way to start. All right, so we see from Ace, says Greg, cool, is Rasta in Absolute 6? So I'm not sure if it is or not. So let's take a quick look. So take a look. So we see all the sounds of Saul, Anima. So I don't think it is included. Yeah, it doesn't look like it is, but let's go ahead and just let's take a look for but it's, yeah, so it's going to be sold separately. Let's take a look. So Rasta is $59, so, and you don't have to, you know, pay to get the battery replaced in a couple of years. So, but yeah, it's gonna be sold separately. But definitely check out Rost. I guess Rost-A or Rasta, what I call it. So, but that's a great synth. Okay, so we see Bratman Studio lost a chat page, had to reboot YouTube to get it back. If any others had that problem, it's back. All right. Sorry that you ran into that. All right, I know we had a couple of questions that were mailed in, so let me get to those. All right, so we had this a question, I think it was from Rob from Tarpon Springs, Florida on Tuesday's live stream. It says, why do I get a wait for printer configuration message when starting a project? So I did some research on this, and it looks like there's a Windows setting that you can adjust. So we will come over, I think I'm on desktop. So if you go to the printer settings in Windows, so other people had indicated that once you're in the printer settings in Windows, to uncheck let Windows manage my default printer. So you see this area right here, to uncheck that, and that kind of made their message go away, and they're having it kind of pop up in other programs as well. So Rob tried just to uncheck let Windows manage my default printer. Okay, so we had a question on how to route a MIDI track to a separate instrument output on a VST instrument. And it's interesting because Teddy Riley had this question for me just last week. So let's say we're doing a project here, and we'll do a new empty project. So I'm going to add an instrument track. So we'll do a multi-timbral instrument like Hallian Sonic. So let's add a Rasta instrument here. All right, so as we... And now I want to add, let's say, an FM synth. All right, so I'm going to add a MIDI track. And let's say I have the FM synth. When we come here to the mix output, I have this going to a separate output, so that when I play this sound, that it's going out of this output, I play this sound. So I'm gonna just put this channel 2. So, but often what happens is when we want to adjust the EQ on this, we're not really hearing the EQ changes because the EQ that we have is going to be for the first instrument. So if I come here now, I adjust the EQ. So how to, make it so that we could adjust the EQ on the output for this instrument is when we come over, we can see that we have our outputs here. So you see, okay, this is going to our output routing, and then we have where our instrument return channel is. So I'm going to set this to slot 2. So now, as soon as I come to the MIDI track, and we're playing the FM synth, I could adjust the EQ. There, and when I come to this instrument, this EQ is going to be totally different, so that when I switch between the two tracks, we could have our EQ and our insert settings all completely independent of each other, but we need to just come here. And this is added in 13, where you could just set the particular audio output of the virtual instrument right there. You will still need because we set it there, it doesn't mean you would still need to go into the instrument and do the routing in the instrument. But once that's done, we could have all of the channel settings for your virtual instrument, for MIDI, for instrument tracks and MIDI tracks automatically handled for you right there. All right, let me jump back to our live discussion. We'll be moving over to our Zoom social meetup, and again, special guest Teddy Riley. We just got our confirmation. So this will be a great one to join. So our Zoom social meetup. All right, so I'm going to paste the link one more time here. All right. All right, wonderful to see Jeff Sabelski has joined us. All right, we see Graham Witcher won't be able to join the Zoom tonight. We'll miss having you there. All right, so we see FlyV asks, I just finished the SpectralLayers trial. Where can I find SpectralLayers 1? So when you go to your Steinberg download assistant, and you when you select under your My Products your Cubase version, so like Cubase 12 or Cubase 13 or 11, so we'll go to here. I'm going to select my Cubase Pro 13, and then within your Cubase Pro 13 download area, you'll see SpectralLayers. And then you could just install, and this will be the SpectralLayers 1 that's just going to install directly from here. And this is a part of your Cubase license. So you could just install right from there. All right, so you see Jeff Sabelski's fine-tuning oboe reeds for an upcoming concert. See Bratman Studios liking his Behringer Pro VS Mini synth for $99. So we see Daniel says, is it true that we should always cut the bottom 30 hertz to avoid some funny business because humans don't hear it? Sometimes it's, some stuff can kind of creep into that range, and there's nothing so musical that's in that range that's kind of musically intentional, maybe a thunder sound effect or thunder type sound, but there's no, I think in mixing, never say always, so you may want to make it sound more analog or something, and then put something in for a special effect, or like an 808 909 kind of glide sound, something like that may go down that low. So see, Ace Amadeus says, Greg, yes, no need to replace hardware batteries. Yeah, I have a rack that's probably half full of hardware batteries need to be replaced. It's annoying. All right, so see Graham Witcher has to take off, so thanks for joining us, Graham. Wonderful to have you on as always. Okay, Michael Teams is asking, is Rost A included with Hallian Sonic? So no, it's a separate instrument that sells for $59. So it's not going to be included with Hallian. So it's an add-on sale that's done by a third-party company. Okay, so Mark Rabin says he's re-downloading Zoom for the meeting. So yeah, it'll be wonderful to learn from Teddy. I always remember being at a NAMM show, and I was doing a demonstration with Teddy, and Stevie Wonder stopped and sat down and just listened to what Teddy was saying. So, and sat for a 45-minute presentation. So So it's always great to learn from Teddy. All right, so we have from Command Beats, stupid question, how to use a compressor or how it works. All right, so let's take a look. All right, so I'll just find something that's not so compressed to start off with. All right, so let's all right, so let's say I want to take this track and put a compressor on it. So what a compressor is going to allow you to do is kind of regulate dynamics. So if we're going to look at kind of a simple compressor, when I come over here, we could set, I could say, and we could look at this as kind of like our threshold. So we could say, okay, we're not really affecting the volume. But what we could do is say, okay, at this point in the signal, I want to start to bring down the dynamics of that signal so that the loud parts, if we listen to the snare, we could kind of compress. So if we want to do kind of extreme, so when you hear stuff like that going on, so what a compressor can do is kind of bring up the soft parts to make them a little louder and make the loud parts a little bit softer so that you don't have to ride the fader as much. And as we do this, we could have different colors. So if I wanted to put in more of a, like a kind of, let's say we go to like a vintage compressor. At this point, I could just so we could just, adjust our output here. So you could just kind of, and we could, like the attack, we could think of how fast that compressor starts to kick in. You could add kind of punch to it, and the release of when that compressor kind of lets go. And then we could have kind of like a mix. But again, think of it as just coming over here and taking the loud parts, and sometimes people will just come right over here and be able to kind of blend like those two signals together. Like this is dry, that's without the compression, this is with the compression. If we want to find that balance between the two, we could adjust the dry mix directly. So use it for kind of regulating and kind of making dynamics more consistent. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and migrate to our Zoom. All right, so I'm going to start the Zoom. I'm going to paste the Zoom link one more time, and don't miss learning from Teddy Riley. He is a legend. If you've heard the term New Jack Swing, he invented it. He is one of the few people you'll ever meet that has a whole musical genre based on him. So let's go ahead and start Zoom. See Soren on. Brian Sawyer. See Jazz Dude, all right. Rob, Jan, John Costigan. All right. All right, we'll have some other people join here. We have Cubase X joining. All right, so we see Teddy on. All right, we'll just get started here in a couple minutes, Teddy. We're migrating over from the Club Cubase live stream. I'll turn my camera on. Yeah, we can. Hey, Teddy. All right, we have Sable Winters joining.
Okay, greetings from Finland. Hello, everybody. Have a nice Friday and have a nice weekend, everybody.
All right. And Teddy, did you want me to record this for you?
Yes.
Okay. Is everyone okay if I record the meeting? Any objections? All right, I'll go ahead and start recording.
Recording in progress.
All right, I'm going to shut down the Club Cubase, and then I'm going to shut down the live stream, and then we'll start on and get to meet Teddy here. All right, so the live stream is ended.